Hello everyone, my name is Tim. I would like to show off my tank a little bit today. Just to start, by no means am I a professional reefer of any kind. I've been doing it for a while, ever since I was a kid. I've been into aquariums and everything, but this particular system I've only had for about 2.5 years in this particular configuration. I moved a lot of it from a very simple system that I had before we moved to this house, and when we were going to move, my wife found this stand, the blueprints for it online. So I took the blueprints and I built this stand out of it. And that's a 90-gallon show tank. And I don't necessarily want to concentrate as much on the tank itself because it is very young. It is not necessarily a showpiece as considered by the community just yet. It'll get there eventually. It's a filtration system that I find more interesting. I think some people might. It's not super advanced, it's not super high end, but I did what I could with what I had to work with. I tried to buy on the cheap as much as I could, where I could, and I tried to get the biggest bang for my buck that I could. Originally, I wasn't able to find a chiller very cheap, so I ended up having to make the water volume higher. And the way I did that was by adding 255-gallon sumps, basically. One is down there at the bottom, and one is in a closet behind this system on the other side of the wall. So let's take a look at it real quick. The main tank itself is, as you can see, very young. I am feeling pretty confident about the cycle in here. The corals are doing very well. Uh, my doser took a crap recently and overdosed calcium, which I'm glad it was just the calcium. So some of my corals darkened up and weren't doing very good for a couple of weeks, but I got the problem pretty much sorted now. And they seem to be doing very well. I just fed them, so the water is a little bit murky. I even have pulsing xenia that came back recently, which I'm pretty excited about. Some people just can't seem to keep them. I had a hard time keeping them alive for like 2 years, and this came back from like a single polyp. Everything had died off, and just a little piece of it had survived on a rock apparently, and they just came back. So they've been growing pretty well. They're not pulsing just yet. I'm working on that, but I feel like that's pretty good. I had a Maxima clam in here that was doing great as well, but I left for the weekend and it fell over, and I wasn't there to pick it up, so it died. So I just purchased a Durasa. When I come back from vacation, I'm gonna put that in here, and we'll go from there. These little guys are kind of fun. Just picked them up the other day, and I thought they were kind of neat. Cucumbers. They got their tentacles out right now, so they're pretty fun. My tang, the blue hippo tang, it got a bad infection recently. A lot of plaque and just the eye disease. I forget what that's called, where the eye pops out like insane. And I tried everything. I dosed the tank for probably 3 weeks with Kick and Ruby Red, and it seemed to fight it back but didn't get rid of it entirely. And then I remembered an old timer reefer told me about garlic at one point, so I ended up crushing garlic directly into my mysis shrimp that I put in here, and let that sit for a little bit and marinate in garlic and make sure that that's crushed up real well, real fine, and then I'll just dump everything in there with the juices and all. And within 3 days, the hippo tank started to show improvement. which I thought was really cool. I thought that was very interesting. Let's take a look at the lights real quick. I'm working with 3 Mars Aqua LEDs. They are 165 watts. I keep them on the lowest setting, and they seem to do real well. The first part is the sump, first sump, and on one side I have a refugium, pretty simple. Mangroves in there that I've had it for about 8 months, 9 months or so. They came, I grew them from seeds, just picked them up from the beach and stuck them in there. They're doing pretty well. The refugium is doing pretty good. I highly doubt we'll be able to see all the little stuff. Well, maybe a little bit. That's it's a bunch of ghost shrimp that are down there and all sorts of stuff. This side of the system is my basically dark chamber. I used to keep this in a barrel, completely closed off from light, but it ended up causing too much space issue problems. So I moved everything into here, and I put a bubbler down there. I run bubbles up through the system. It seems to help, I think, with the bacteria growth, and about 80 pounds of live rock. And I couldn't help myself but keep the bio balls from some of my older systems. I know they're more or less redundant, but I couldn't seem to throw them away, so I just kind of threw them on top of there and threw a rag over that so it blocks as much light as possible. Seems to do all right. That's the center of the sump. I have 2 pumps. The first pump here is the main pump that pumps the water back into the main tank, and the second pump is what sends water into my other sump, which is the more interesting part of the system. So let's go take a look at that real quick. The wave maker is on the other side. It's in a side drawer, and so is the controller for the main pump. This is the mechanical side of the filtration. I have a 55-gallon tank set up here, which basically runs, that's the second pump, the line that runs from there into my ultraviolet filter, that then goes into the chiller, which sends water into the main tank. The main tank holds my mechanical filtration, the sump, or the protein skimmer, 150, the 150 octopus. Seems to do pretty well. I know I should probably have a little bit more of a powerful one, but it seems to do all right. And I have a little bio pellet reactor. It's meant for 100 gallons, but I jerry-rigged it a little bit, put a more powerful pump on it. Works pretty well. Does the little part for the system, not much, but in conjunction with the other things that I've got going, it seems to add just enough to make everything work really well. That pump at the very top over there is what I use to keep the overflow running in case of power outages, to start it up again. Make sure that nothing just sits there for very long. My charcoal filter, keep a little bit of nitrate absorbent media in there, but honestly haven't had a problem with nitrates in a good few months. Enough water changes and keeping on top of everything seems to do pretty well. I keep everything labeled so I know what to turn off, when to turn off. For water changes, this is the tank that I basically shut off from the main system. I empty it, fill it with pre-mixed salt water, and turn it back on and run it through the system, which works really well. My top-off barrel is right there. As I said before, I had another barrel right about here where I kept all my live rock in, and it was just kind of too cramped in here. So when I got my chiller, which the idea basically for this 555 gallon was also to increase the water volume and chill the water naturally, which works really well. So I only needed a 3/4 of a horsepower chiller to chill the entire system, since the water volume is so big. So all these pumps and all these electronics, they don't make the water heat up as much as they would have in a 90 gallon system or a 100 gallon with the sump. 140, sorry. Finally set up my doser. That seems to be doing all right. After it took a dump, I figured out the problem and got it working pretty good again. So I'm still a little bit edgy about it. I am testing it every day or so. I put cups down to check how much it actually puts in, and I reset it every couple weeks just to make sure everything goes good. All my testing equipment I keep up here. Feel pretty lucky that I have all this space, which is nice. My chiller, I'm pretty proud of the system that I put in. While it's a very cheap chiller, I bought it used. It's probably 10 years old at least. I built a exhaust box back there to catch the exhaust, which runs into this duct that then goes into the attic and out to the roof. I put a extra vent into here, into the closet, to vent some fresh air in, and the chiller works as an exhaust and keeps the air circulating and fresh, and there's really no buildup or mold or anything like that, which is great. But I mean, it is salt water, so wouldn't be that much of that anyway. But the humidity definitely stays down, so that's great. That's basically it for the system. Again, it's just something kind of neat, a little bit different. I tried to take advantage of the space that I had, and I think I did that. It's relatively low budget. I tried to buy everything that I can used. Of course, aside from a couple of things, I try to buy newer pumps or brand new if I can. The lighting I had to get new, just wasn't available when I was looking for the doser. But the other stuff, you can find it if you look close enough. Anyway, thanks for taking a look. Bye.